coming for you. Yeah, he's coming for you. All the other kids with the form will get you better.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage again, Russell Perkins.
Come on down. No assigned seating.
No assigned seating like that.
You can do the 10-second countdown for stragglers.
Saying that. I was asking how the mic was going to be.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Your mic's not on. I know. Thank you. We are just about to get started. If you are still outside, come on in. Everybody, I can tell, is having great conversations, which is part of what this is all about. And it's always a balance between talking and doing business and then hearing from really, really smart people about the tools they are changing. So I got it right this time.
You did.
So I'm really proud of myself. So Russell, please take it away.
All right, well, we are, as you can see, doing this session living room style. So just imagine a nice crackling fireplace in the background, a bottle of scotch out here, and we're going to have a conversation. And the conversation is really about tools, or sort of more broadly, how we build and create data products in this new environment. And I think many of you, like I, were kind of stunned by that first panel we had this morning. And we've got some really innovative, creative companies out there that have just found niche markets, and they're pulling in data in a lot of different ways. And I saw an awful lot of automation there. So these are tools at work. These are companies we need to know about. They could be partners. They could be competitors. But it really comes down ultimately to how we want to build and maintain our own data products. And that immediately goes to, well, what are my options? What are the capabilities? What are the limitations? And that's why I think we've got a really great panel here today, because we've got some people who I consider some of the bright minds in the business in terms of solutions for the industry and helping publishers not only think about how best to put together their products, but actually in many cases doing it for them. So we've got the inside track here. My four speakers today in order, we've got Keith Cooper, who is CEO of Connotate, John Felahi, who's Chief Strategy Officer of Content Analyst, Vinit Khanna, who's Chairman of the OKS Group, and Matt Manning, President of Information Evolution. I think a lot of you in different ways have worked with them in the past or currently, so you know the quality of this group. And now let's try and pull some great insights out of them and get some guidance from them about how we should be thinking about both information, how we should be gathering it, how we should be maintaining it as we go forward. But I thought, since not everybody knows everyone, maybe we could just 30, 60 seconds each from each of you on just position your company and the product offerings that you have. And sure.
Sure. Keith Cooper, CEO of Connotate. Most of you have probably heard of Connotate. The technology has actually been around for a while, spun out of Rutgers University Computer Science Department about 10 years ago, and has evolved over time to become an incredible, valuable tool for web data extraction and monitoring at scale. So if you look at the intersection of scale and precision, if you want to get web data, Connotate is a terrific workflow automation tool for you. As it relates to our types of customers, we have lots of publishers, Thomson Reuters, FactSet, Associated Press, and so forth. And more now, we have customers that want to do competitive intelligence at scale to figure out what their competitors or even what their customers are doing online to inform their sales and marketing processes. We have companies that use us to mine data from court sites for background checks. So basically anything that's out there on the web that you can access as a human being, you can access automatically and very efficiently with a technology like Connotate. We have on-prem solutions so you can do it yourself, or we have hosted solutions and we'll do it all for you.
Great.
I'm John Felahi. I'm with Content Analyst Company. You probably never heard of us. We're like BASF. We don't make any products that you would buy. We just make them better. We build text analytics technology that goes inside of other solutions. So some of the large publishers use us inside, and a number of other markets. We've been for years supplying and analyzing information with our friends in the Beltway, the three-letter agencies. We are the #1 way people organize, analyze, and look at information in the legal market, and then in the social media market. So we're an OEM supplier. We build a platform that goes into other people's environments and converts information into knowledge sets. The big thing that's unique about the technology, just spend 1 second on myself. I used to be the head of Fast Search and Transfer's product planning and strategy. Many of you probably heard that, and you're still mad that Microsoft bought them. We never could solve what I called the a priori information problem, meaning unless the search engine is told the associated terms, misspellings, and way that word should be used or looked at, the system couldn't do any of that learning itself. This approach is a learning system. It works in any language. It learns from the data itself, finds those associations so we can organize it or search conceptually with the data set versus with outside influence.
I am Vinit. OKIA started its life almost 30 years ago as overseas keyboarding services, morphed in '92 to outsourced knowledge solutions. But we've been gathering data for publishers and information providers now for 30 years almost. And that's what we've been doing, and we continue to do it, whether it's for internal or for internal use or for external sale. So I'm just happy to be here and learn from these guys. Our customer base is very similar to what Mr. Cooper, those who use Mr. Cooper.
Great. My name is Matt Manning. I'm the president of Information Evolution. We're an outsourcing firm that helps our customers to make their information products more competitive, and that basically means making them better, allowing our customers to deploy them quickly, and also, in the primary reason that we're around is decreasing the cost of ownership for our customers' content sets. So when we started the company in 2007, that focus was primarily on human resources, where I went to India and trained up teams to do the work that I had done at Oxbridge and other places, building databases and maintaining those databases. So kind of just shared my best practices and built that team. Then over time, we started adding more and more technology partnerships. Our first was with Connotate on data extraction and monitoring. And since then, we've added 3 more partnerships with Stella Technologies, which has a Kameya software that allows a very high volume data extraction from PDF, InDesign, Word documents, and takes that data very, very quickly, a few seconds per page, and exports out clean XML that can be used in any application. It's primarily used by governments for government filings, legal filings, and stuff that's very timely and very high volume. Our second partnership is with Crowd Computing Systems. We use our WorkFusion platform to handle our crowdsourcing projects. We use crowdsourcing as a means of kind of simple data append work. Really, crowdsourcing is just a form of human resources, but it's just a distributed network, and it has some distinct advantages. It can be very, very fast. Actually, the costs, people go into crowdsourcing primarily for the cost savings, but really it's the speed that crowdsourcing offers that's the real advantage there. And then our third partner is a relatively new partner, Enlighten, and they're an enterprise search tool, and they allow us to find needles in a haystack, the haystack being the internet. So I don't can't really tell you exactly how it works because I don't know, but there's some serious math in there that basically you train it to look at a few documents, it analyzes them, basically creates a number, a value for that search, compares it against its index, and then kind of magically brings back very, very targeted results. And so we're finding more and more applications for that tool. So those are the 4 tools that we use and are making up a larger part of what we do.
Interesting. Now, I think I'm going to try and do a little segmentation here because we got a really diverse panel, which I think will make this an interesting conversation. But John and Keith, I put you sort of in the technology tools category. Vinit and Matt, I'd put you more in the services category. And then maybe a little further subdivision, I might even call you a hybrid because you're using a combination of tools and manual data entry and people skills to put data sets together. Vinit, is it fair to say that you're primarily manual and you're...
No.
Okay.
I would be much more in line with what Matt has.
Okay, so you're both in that category where you're doing a combination of tools and manual data entry.
Like we.
Got it. And John, and I'll further subdivide you because you're sort of an OEM provider. You're selling to the people who sell to the ultimate end user.
Yeah, we'll sell to integrators like for around the government. And in the publishing space, if the team has their own development team and they're integrating, components to go make their offering, we sell to them. But we don't sell to someone saying we want to take your technology and put it in. The issue is that we're mostly high-end kind of smart guys doing the mathematical model that Matt talked about. And what we found is every one of the different customers wants to visualize. If you remember this morning's conversation from Jeanette, that's key. How do we take the data insight, all the mining markup, and make that something that someone can see or understand, as some of the people in the previous panel talked about, which is their strength. That to me is a radically different business, and you really have a use case and a workflow. And for us, we help people with that, but we don't do that.
So I couldn't team up with you. We do some work with the government as well, collecting data from bad guy sites around the world. And the government has a various cadre of other companies that do some of what you do and some other sort of flagging. I couldn't partner with you and walk into the government together because you don't do that directly.
Correct.
Gotcha.
If you wanted to integrate our stuff into yours and sell it to the government, we'd be happy to work with you. The only flip side is that if you're walking into any of the 3-letter agencies, they already have our stuff and you don't have to do that, you just integrate it. We're already ahead there.
Okay, got it.
Did all the legwork for them. I'll give you my sort of grand unified theory of how publishers have morphed in their relationship with their outsourced providers for either data entry services or technology or any mix of the two. I mean, my sense originally is that, of course, publishers started out doing all this in-house. When these alternatives became available to them, my sense at least was that they started out saying, hey, I found a way to do it cheaper. And then this evolved into, I think I see this opportunity to collect vastly more amounts of data than I ever captured before. And then I even argue that there's a third phase that's come in where it's now like, I've got all the breadth, now I need the depth on all those companies and people. So I'm digging deeper than I ever did before. Does that sort of track with your experiences?
Absolutely. In fact, one of what we're doing is we're getting to workflows, which is some of what John's team is doing. And then what we're doing is almost adding subject matter expertise and editorial value added. For example, for some of our legal publishers, we're doing case notes and head notes in taking stuff in coming out of the European Commission in Brussels in multiple languages. So we started with just being overseas keyboarding services, outsourced knowledge solutions. Our bylines were transforming information to meet your needs, transforming information into assets. And I got shouted down by my team, but I just said transform and prosper. But we said, the guys maybe change it and say it's prosperity through transformation, which I have a problem with, but I got overruled by my team. But honestly, absolutely, Russell, we can't stay in business just by being the low-cost provider. We have to add value. And we're using a network of editors in-house as well as around the world.
I would add that lately it seems like speed has become more of an issue too. And I agree with that timeline. People did it in-house, and then it got complicated. They did it out-of-house. And now you look at that last panel, which is just really stunning in the sense of what they're doing in-house technically. I mean, it's stuff we never would have done at Hoover's,
Right.
But I think the next big frontier is speed. And so real time, someone changes knobs and boom, that cascades and you're alerted right
That's
away.
where Keith's stuff is really very good from the
Right.
little I know about it.
Yeah, that's what we use it for.
Yeah, well, for stuff when you really got speed, but I think that works especially when you know the websites and you're not millions of them, and everything comes out in a standard manner. It's unstructured, but there's method in the madness, and there's discipline in which how the websites publish. We, on the other hand, often have to go to websites and do the primary research by email response or by phone calling, and that's much more customized. Speed is important, but it's almost impossible to do it at the speed of which the automated tools that Keith and Matt use.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity maybe for us too, because we don't search, we gather, right? That's sort of a simple distinction. We harvest, but you got to tell us what it is and where it is. And some customers come to us and they say, I don't know what 10,000 websites have my fake drugs that are being sold that I just paid $1 billion to produce. I don't know them. I want you to find them. And we go, that's not what we do for a living. But you would do that for a living.
Absolutely. In fact, we do that. We have lawyers. We do a lot of IP research because part of our business is actually creating IP for our customers and protecting IP, whether it's in the fashion and luxury goods for counterfeiting in Asia, or we're looking at technology in LG or BlackBerry defending their patents. So we do that kind of analysis. We might, our customers or our mutual customers would get your software, get all the stuff, and then we would then drill down further. What they do automatically, we could never do, or math people do, we could never do in a million years. And that's their expertise.
And I think to your original question, when I looked at going in selling search solutions almost a decade ago, every one of the major publishers were trying to be a complete integrated stack. They tried to understand the whole infrastructure, the technology, and the content they produced. I think if you watched over the last decade, most of those players have gotten out of the infrastructure play. They have sat there and said, we can't afford this play. There's new ways to deal it. I can deal with the cloud. I can offload it. I can look at stuff. The second thing they did is they started to understand, I don't need to own all the software. There's a large group, LexisNexis. They had the unique search engine. They could only do it in 3 languages. The problem is that wasn't their expertise. Their expertise was in the workflow and the content they were providing. And what they really realized, most publishers are starting to realize in my mind, back to the opening dialogue, it is the content and our ability to gain the insight from the content, whether we're an aggregator or a creator, and how do we package that up for our different audiences? What tools can we use to improve that process? And then, the last thing, we play around with the term big data, but it's absolutely true. We've got, if you take the Gartner, velocity, variety and volume, and then complexity, but the killers right now are the volume and the velocity. And to me, the real killer is velocity. In some businesses, it's volume, but the killer is velocity in certain markets. They just cannot keep up with what's going on. And they need new tools and new approaches so they can still go after what their value add or their business proposition is.
Yeah, and I would say there's a real bottleneck there, because some things can be done so quickly, but then you run into what I think Jeanette was talking about, that to create insight. It's one thing to process all this data very quickly, but if you don't have it categorized right, and you run into these walls where you just need, maybe it's just a little bit of labor, and that's where, Vinit and my firm, we can kind of step in and keep the data flowing. Even in a process of 99% automated, a big data set that 1% is gonna be an awful lot of information.
You hit one thing, quick anecdote. I went into a particular customer, I won't say who, and they had this huge online site, and they are really disappointed with the site. And they had more data in it, and it says, well, don't you keep up your taxonomy tool? Oh no, we don't do that. And I said, then there's no way that the data can be organized or classified so you can navigate and search it. And they went out and hired a different firm. Their site went from being one of the worst in their market to being one of the top ones in their market a year later, because they went out and hired we recommended 3 or 4 different firms that kind of specialize in that. And because the data got classified, it changed the way people could mine it, find it, and organize it, their consumers.
Yeah.
Huge change in using a tool properly or understanding what the value is that you bring.
Yeah. I'm always amazed at how people use our technology to gain those insights, and I wish I was that smart. We have some hedge funds that are using the technology to what I'll call predict the present. It's not that something hasn't happened yet, the stock price hasn't happened yet, but what's happening within those companies that they can decipher and then put through their algorithms and their smarts is actually predicting something that's going to happen before anybody else knows it.
It's interesting. How do we balance this? We're talking about velocity, we're talking about volume and speed, which would suggest to me that you want to be as automated as you possibly can, versus what we've also talked about, which is the need for that human cleanup, that human analysis, that human insight. How do we strike that balance in this kind of environment?
It's horses for courses. It's not that complicated, It's the marketplace that will decide. The users and the customers are the ones who create the demand. And it is our role as facilitators to meet those needs, whether it's using Mr. Felahi and Mr. Cooper together, whichever combination. And really, I think a lot of us end up doing is a lot of consulting, free consulting with our customers on workflows, on giving them some ideas, just like you just said, about what you do with the taxonomy. And I think there's another guy over here who's, I've seen here before, who has a good taxonomy, I think Wand. So they've also got a good taxonomy tool. So, it's really the marketplace, and we guys go in, and I think we're all happy because we're always looking for new revenue to come and sit with you and give you our ideas.
But one thing that I think needs to be, in my mind, when I talk to most people, they go, "Oh, you're great, your product's unbelievable." 8 years ago we couldn't sell it because it was an in-memory solution, so it was costly to run. Now memory's cheap. Oh, everybody wants an in-memory solution so you can deal with performance. But the real issue is can we enhance the human resources we have to make them more productive? And to me, that's the whole thing about what technology is going to do in my mind is how can we sit there and say, how can I take that subject matter expertise or that insight on the workflow and have a tool automate it so that I can cut the stuff that's bad data or inappropriate or not really focused or low value information to high value information. When we do, for example, in the legal community, we're in every product in e-discovery. Their big issue is they've got high-priced lawyers, and what they want to be able to do is say, we want to classify the information quickly. Here are things that are important to the case, here are things that are not important to the case, so that the lawyer, isn't looking at it. When we look also in the publishing space, one of the biggest things is how do I summarize the most valuable documents quickly, right? Again, it's speed. Here are key documents that my customers want to read. Well, they're not going to read the whole thing 9 times out of 10. They want the quick summary so that we can look at it. So how can we get the right documents to the people that can write the best summaries or give them the best sentences out of the document to go read and craft a summary? So it's a lot of, we're not going to get rid of the human, but how can we make that human more effective with the larger flow?
I think, John, you're here talking about predictive coding. Is that?
Yeah, the predictive coding is a term out there in the legal industry, and you can't do it without our product. Well, there's 2 other people that think they can do it, and they use a version of technology that likes
And I'm going to have Keith interject, Matt, but what we do for the tools we build is we're continually learning. So whenever we find something, we're always trying to take the human element out of it, because the machine is a binary 0 or 1, which is what you want, and the machine doesn't allow shades of gray. So what we're trying to do all the time, and I'm sure, Keith, you'll know more about your relational database tables that you have in your software, that you're continually feeding stuff back in there.
Yeah,
make it smarter.
2 of the features of our technology don't get talked about a lot, but they're incredibly important for the subject. One is change detection with highlighting. So what does that mean? That means that if something changes out there on a news site, I don't need to bring you the whole thing again. right? I'm just going to bring back what's changed and tell you what's changed, whether it's been added or deleted. Simple little feature, hard to do, very valuable to save people time and get them the right information. Second is resiliency. So websites change all the time. And if our technology broke every time a website was reorganized by a creative marketing person, and you had 1 million of our robots going out every day gathering data from companies around the world, that would be a hassle. So we have spent a lot of time on the machine learning and the algorithms, so that if you get creative and change a management team page to 3 rows versus 2 rows, it brings you back the same information that you want. So those sorts of things we do spend a lot of time on.
Yeah. Well, I think you've done a good job answering one of my next questions, was humans pro or con. I think there's absolutely a role here, but what we're talking about is using technology really to leverage, to let them work as effectively as possible for maximum productivity.
Yeah.
And speed.
And speed.
Yeah, I would add one thing that, I mean, humans, really the process engineering part, you're never going to be able to replace, so those are humans with experience. So, your senior managers, our senior managers, people have been around in the publishing business, they understand this information, they understand the tools, and they can connect the dots so that, a change is detected, and are we 100% sure it's correct? Well, we're 99% sure. Somebody's got to eyeball that. And then that's one part of probably a 200-stage process. The data is flowing through the system, eventually getting to the end user. So you're always going to need humans for that part of the equation, whether they're in-house or through a consulting firm.
To me, it's, again, how can we take, as everyone here has kind of talked about, when we gain enough insight, can we codify it and then validate it, right? So that to me is the thing where you want to look at your technology. Does it give you a way to codify your experiences and then look at the anomalies or the edge cases so you can use the experts on that, not on the mundane? And that's a critical phase for people to do. But there's one other part that, Vinit talked about, which is most of the stuff that we've dealt with, at least until recently, is English. And the one issue that we face as an industry is it's global. And what people are looking for, I mean, you talk about doing all that work, but the issue is can we get the quality levels in other languages in automated tools? And that's one area where there's still a limitation in much of the taxonomy work and analysis work, where we still need better human review for the global business.
Well, our solution for this, I mean, about 35% of our revenues are in Europe and about 20% are in non-English. So our way to do this has been to write simple tools which again highlight the important decisions that the software can't. We do keyword search, so we translate it, get the keywords done, and then have human reviews. And we're doing, today we have access to the German courts, and we can, through a combination of tools and humans, have people in India reading and understanding a certain amount of German, codify stuff, and we follow its rules-based processing. And based on one of our customers, we took a decision that put Siemens out of business, which was incorrect, obviously, but that was, we follow the rules of our customer and we fixed that very easily. But there are situations, and we're seeing a great growth market for us, because there are not so many tools and software available in the non-English world.
Yep.
We've taken it as a huge opportunity, using a network of freelancers and editors in Europe to add the value, supplemented by tools that we've developed with resources on mainland Europe as well as in India. So it's really horses for courses. We look at a solution and we see where can we get the biggest bang for our buck quickly and deliver a product to the market.
John's point on the language, I think, is dead on. I mean, it's a real challenge. Some of the tools we use, like Kamea, actually processes hundreds of thousands of legal documents in French, and there's no problem there. The crowdsourcing, there's no language to crowdsourcing. I mean, the workers are global. I mean, okay, 90-some% of them are working in English. But the fact is, it doesn't have to be that way, and you can target actually by region.
Yep.
So you can have folks in France working on French records, and this is something we're looking at, or Kevin, you're in the audience somewhere, Kevin's looking at that. And so we're going to try to crack that nut. And some other BPOs have done well at it. Venki here from Scope. These guys do an awesome job with foreign language STM projects. But it's a very tough nut to crack, and there's a lot of work yet to be done there.
Keith, do you do anything in foreign language?
Our customers do. So we have, Thomson Reuters probably has us in 50 countries and dozens of different languages, because our interface to gather the data from the web is really point and click. So whatever you're pointing at, whether it's a Chinese character or an English word, can be collected. But I think we've been slow to do that ourselves. Given that the technology is already sort of written for foreign languages, can do that. For us to go out and expand globally should be at the top of the list for 2014.
Yeah, I think probably everyone in this room is either in the process of going global or knows they should be. And any other lessons learned that you could give to the audience about?
But there's one other twist.
Okay.
There's the twist the other way, as I like to call it, which is the language in the blogosphere, Twitter, where all of a sudden a lead blogger has created some new term, and it has meaning to that group that reads that into that space. And we do a lot of work for the social media and marketing guys, because the problem with the traditional word list approach of trying to make sure you've got the associations, that new word doesn't have any associations. So it doesn't have those 100 or 300 blogs that just started in the last day or two of people replicating what the lead blogger said and use their term, all of a sudden is missed. So it's like a foreign language. So even though it's English, so to speak, it's not English. And one of the things that's really critical in kind of the new world of, I call it, when we do work with our legal folks and patents and all that stuff, the grammar's great. We don't worry about grammar in our product, but the language is perfect. There's few misspellings. When you start to deal with the social information, I hate to say it, my kids are, one finished law school, he's great. My daughter is a teacher. She's like me, she can't put 3 words together and get them correct. If spell check didn't exist, I'd be in trouble. But forget my grammar. But when you read a lot of the stuff that's out there, it's a different language. And the terms are radically changing. They're misspelling, they're code words, they're abbreviations, they're mashups of words. And the biggest problem that most of us are starting to face is we're not capturing that trend. We don't understand that analysis until it's past us in many cases. And when you're dealing again with the marketing side of the house, they are dealing with speed. They need to be responsive. 2 days late responding to a trend about their product because they didn't catch it in any of their social systems, because they didn't have that word associated with a good word or bad word or any other term, they are in big trouble. So new approaches on how to do that, with approaches like ours, and there's other people that are doing mathematical models or learning systems to augment the way the regular system works, is really critical.
Yeah, and doing it in real time, it sounds
In
like.
real time, yeah.
That's quite a challenge right here at home. But again, just circling back, what have you encountered in your travels in terms of foreign data collection? Are there different kind of business practices, regulatory environments, expectations over there? Anything that you can offer to the audience in terms of road bumps?
When I look at the IP, one of the revolutionary cases from my point of view was a Feist ruling about copyright and the sweat of the brow to create IP, and we've been religiously sticking with that. When we go to websites, we're very conscious of what we're doing, because we're going to website, we're doing, again, like I said, primary research via phone or email. So we are making sure that whenever we build and aggregate content for our customers, we are not infringing on anybody's IP. After all, many of our customers' business is selling their IP and licensing their IP, so we're very conscious of it. The European data protection rules are very stringent. American companies inadvertently fall afoul of them. When we did work, we had KPMG come and audit our facilities in India to make sure that we were in compliance. It's a lot more difficult, and from my limited view of the world, America is by far the best place to do global business. In European, no matter, they talk about the European economy, they're putting in barriers to trade all the time.
And information, yeah, I agree. They're double opt-in, I mean.
And there's, at every which way, there's a stumbling block, or there's some, the cricket term, they put a googly where you're not expecting something to blindside you. So one has to be very careful.
Yeah. One of the things that's really important in Europe is if you're going to store information for your customer or blend it with your customer's information, it has to stay in a cloud secure environment in country.
Absolutely.
In some cases, in Germany, it has to be in Germany, in France, in France. In certain countries, they'll allow it in Europe, but not outside of Europe. And then the other kind of key thing that people kind of miss if they start to look at the CJK, any of the Chinese, Japanese, is to make sure that you understand your whole workflow, that the tokenization of the content going into your system is the same tokenization used on the query side. This is down a level, but it is one of the things that kills most sites. They don't understand what happened to them. They buy a workflow or put in a system that converts the document so it can be processed and put through the rest of the search engine or whatever, and then they use something at the front end. It doesn't break down the character sets the same, and hence the search and lookup experience is so far off that people don't understand why the site's not working. Same thing's true in a number of the Pashto, Hindi, and some other languages where they've not broken that down or been consistent at two ends. So what someone's asking and what the system has, the way they've stored it in the digital world is slightly different, and something that if you're dealing with foreign language, you really got to think through.
Interesting. Yeah, Matt, you've done a lot. I think you're actively doing a lot with crowdsourcing these days. And what is your sense of generating data from the crowd or user-generated data, quality and all those other issues?
Yeah, I was thinking about user-generated data in this last conversation because, as John was saying, it's English, sort of, yeah. I mean, mostly, but it's inconsistent, and so if you're doing harvesting or user-generated content, or even government filings for that matter, are not necessarily 100% consistent, especially across government agencies. So if you're doing these overlays, like folks in the previous panel are doing, you'll get all kinds of name variations. So you have to have these authority files. Here's every conceivable variation of this company name, and it all maps to this. And so you've got to do that in order to get value out of a lot of user-generated content. Crowdsourcing, I would say, is a little bit different, and you can embed validation into the forms that people use, so they can't enter garbage data or bad data, or it doesn't conform to the format or rules or whatever. Right. So, we'll see what happens when we roll this out internationally, but for now, we're keeping it discrete. We're using it for really, smaller defined tasks with really tight rule sets, so it hasn't plagued us yet. But
what's an example of that, Matt?
Oh, it just appending email addresses, URLs, etc., names of people. Go to this university and enter the name of the president here, and you have the rule that the name has to look like this. Okay. So that's a basic task, and those you can do consistently. Anything more than that with crowdsourcing, you can do a couple questions, a few questions, but you can't just ask 6 questions. You'll get garbage, and you'll spend the rest of your life trying to figure it out.
For most of our work for the last 30 years would be really categorized as rules-based processing. We're bringing consistency into material that is very often inconsistently provided. And for our customers, it's not the large volume, but the quality of the data that's important. So we have to verify almost everything we do. So that's the confidence that we provide to our customers, and they in turn provide to their customers. So that's really, so for us, crowdsourcing, unless we can verify it in some way, shape, or form, because our client's brand name is going on that product. Their stock market value is depending on the integrity of their data. So we're very, we still stay away from anything that we cannot verify or, again, following our customers' leads. They do have situations where some of it can be loosey-goosey and a certain level of confidence is acceptable. And those are very well suited to some of the automated tools. But if you want a higher degree, then there's still some human element put to it.
We do something slightly different, but I think it's similar insight. For a number of the public sector companies, they'll go out and ask for a survey. And an example is someone was concerned about an EPA regulation. And what happens for a lot of these is some special interest group will send out to the group, here's the form that we want you to send in, add a little bit of text at the front or the end to customize it. But it basically, the people at the other end, they have to read through all these and they say, oh, well, N number of people. What they're really trying to find out in many cases, how many unique people are telling us something unique. And one of the things that we do is we have two types of technology to do near duplicate detection. We can find dupes, that's pretty easy. But the real interesting thing is what we call text near dupe, where it compares the text and says, here's the difference, and highlights, okay, here's the few words difference. The issue is if someone has moved a paragraph around or added a bunch of text at the front or the back, so the text compare is off. It won't, all the types of methods that are out there won't find and say these are really conceptually near dupes. And we have a conceptual near dupe that they use. And it basically, one of the things that they found in this one agency, they had 7 million people respond to a particular issue. 6 million of those replies were from 4 forms set up by 4 special interest groups. They only had really 1 million unique replies, meaning people that went out of their way to write something unique that they should really kind of figure out. And then they did some other things like, is this person a nut? But I won't go into that. But some different approaches to also look, are you getting legitimate information or are you just getting someone repurposing something? You still got to track how many counts, but what's unique? Did we get something that someone really brought something out that we want to read about?
Do any of you have products for your clients where you're building and delivering something totally to them on an automated basis and they're taking it straight to market, or is there human intervention on pretty much everything you're involved in?
Mine always has some human element. That's why I stay in business.
I think if we think about things that are pretty standardized, if you will, with some upfront work, I'm thinking about background check as probably the closest example. There are 3,000 court jurisdictions. There are Indian reservations. I mean, there's a lot of differentiation, and a felony one in, Orange County isn't the same as a felony one necessarily in Middlesex in Massachusetts. So that sort of pre-work has to be done to normalize and transform the data. Once that's done, and you have, your 3,000 agents sitting waiting for instructions, and you put in Russell Perkins and his social security number, and you push the button.
That's crazy, yeah.
And lots comes up. But it can go out to the right site, log in, follow the link. Is it a match? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? If he's a bad guy, drill down, get the information needed, bring it back and put it into a standard format. And as long as you get your sort of customers, if you will, to agree that the standard format's okay, without dramatic changes, that's pretty automated. Now, there are other parts of background check. There's calling the old boss, there's Virinels, all the stuff that we don't do. So it's not a complete solution, but that piece of it is pretty well automated.
Okay, so
front to back.
I think this all comes to structure. Really, without a good structure, and that's what we do. I mean, as publishers, we're taking all this vast data and we're pulling out what's needed, organizing it, and delivering it, hopefully in some type of consistent basis. And so you just have to build that structure and consistency in, like you said, to forms, so you don't get the garbage in the first place. One thing I didn't mention about crowdsourcing is, okay, someone entering some random name, how do you know if it's accurate, right? Well, one of the simplest crowdsourcing tools is plurality. You ask 3 people the same question. If you get exact matches, not fuzzy matches, you're good to go. So there are ways to turn that human element into more of a machine where it's predictable and the structure, is there, where it's structured. And that's key to everything.
For that example, I'm really curious about the crowdsourcing stuff. If you did that three check
Yeah.
for, fill in the presidents of universities across the world, what percentage would be accurate?
Yeah, well, the deal is the other tool you can use is a complex series of vetting and certification. So basically, you use people, you see the results, and if it's 95% accurate, they go on. Then you periodically check them, and they become gold certified, and so we use enough folks that we know who's good, and we periodically check them just to make sure they don't start flaking out on us. But you'd be surprised. It's actually much more accurate than you'd think. But really, it is finding the right people in that crowd. It's not an anonymous crowd, really.
So for us, we don't do it, but we have a couple of customers, like there's a few in the patent space where they have customized the front end. But one thing that is completely automated with our system is something unique about this approach is that you can actually say, find more like this, but it's the document. And because we don't, keyword systems and every other system out there, because I happen to have built a few, what they do is when they say find similar, meaning find more like this document, they take the unique words, take the metadata tags of what category it's in, and go bring back stuff. And hopefully the top ones are relevant. But there's no guarantee that it's actually really conceptually relevant to the document. It's got the right words, but it might not be conceptually relevant. For us, literally they can just highlight a paragraph or say, find me any other document like this, and the system automatically goes into the complete repository of all patents or all applications and says, here's what's there. Our customer, the only thing they do is feed it into the system. That query and result set is completely automated. It doesn't make any difference which one of the patent guys do it.
So it sounds like we're starting to get to that nirvana where you can really deliver something to someone and then take it, use it, and it's a totally automated process.
We just tell them, point it to the repository, we suck in the information, highlight and go. How they want to present the results, that's a little bit different. That's up to them.
Search is probably the only place where you can do that, because people are used to search. They're used to, not everything is going to be perfect, as opposed to, drilling down and, give me the top companies in this industry, it better be right. I think if you do anything other than search still has to be really, really good. And then anything beyond that, you really need some kind of curation in there somewhere.
I'm kind of curious, too, how you work with your clients these days, because I know in the early days of outsourcing and using third-party vendors, there was a very widely held notion that we're going to keep the smarts in the main office and we're going to offload everything else, and everything that comes back gets checked and triple-checked, and that we're really holding on to that core competency of having the subject matter expertise and the knowledge of the marketplace and understanding of how customers are really using the product. I have sensed that that's changing with some companies to the point where that you may actually be doing sort of turnkey projects with them at this point now. And how has the sort of management and oversight of these products shifted? Are any of you doing anything that's sort of totally turnkey, or even where they came to you and said, this is our idea, can you build it for us? Tell us when it's done.
I'm happy to, actually, we're doing this almost proactively as a way to defend our business. Most publishers are having a lot of challenges with revenue. Most of them started with print. They're finding difficult in the digital world to repurpose their data. So as we've become subject matter expertise and in the editorial systems and their workflows, we're understanding a little bit more about how the data is used, and we're understanding our customers' business. And we actually have a business model where it started by them coming to us to be their product development arm, to do their R&D, and we've gone one step further actually to go to our customers. Many of them are big corporations with a lot of budget cuts. So we actually put aside a side budget where we go in with them and partner with them to create opportunities. They're the ones who are close to the marketplace. They have product ideas, but they've got resource constraints. And for us, we actually go in and partner with them. I say we're a low-level, minimal player here, but we use our tools, technology to help test products, with our theory being that if it works, then we got ourselves some captive business. So absolutely. And our customers are expecting us to come up with ideas for them. They've gone the whole hog in the academic publishing world, for example, where no one wants to pay $99 for a textbook for a semester. They want to lease it for $9.99 and have it on a Kindle. Mm-hmm. So those textbook publishers are challenged, and we're looking at workflows of how to get work to the students updated in real time, where we've got authoring tools which the author can change, and instead of a book publishing cycle being 6 months or a year, we can have it down to 4 weeks. So absolutely. And we're doing it to defend our business because we're in trouble otherwise, because our market's in trouble.
In our case, we play a differing role with pretty much every customer. Sometimes we're just a niche player in a very large process. Sometimes we do create the database. We never take an ownership stake. We do not want any potential conflict of interest with our customers. We made a strategic decision. We were never going to do a JV or otherwise create an information product. But beyond that, we will create products from scratch, and then usually they're enhanced and modified, by our customers. I don't think there's anything that's really 100% ours, apart from some like one-off project, which we really don't do. Mostly, we have dedicated teams that work as an extension of our customers' businesses, and there's a lot of interaction, and the degree to which we're doing a project, can be from 1% to 80, something like that.
Ours is actually not a JV, it's actually a revenue share where we actually take a risk. So if the product bombs, we don't get any money, but if the product succeeds, instead of being paid on dollars per hour, we share in the revenue, but it's not a JV by any means. We're a minimal player, it's not our IP, it's their IP, it's just a way of compensating us, which really de-risks it for our customers. And we've had a lot of success with it, and that's really where
we don't do that. All my customers out there don't even ask.
Well, again, it's horses for courses. Because we really want to help our customers grow revenue, and so they've definitely come to us for workflows and extending that into new product ideas.
Well, I've been hogging the floor here. I'm happy to open this up to some questions, and I've got plenty more, but let's see what the audience has to ask right now. I think I see one.
Machine as well as manual labor to kind of gather all the content and harvest the content, right? And rightly so, where it can be automated, it can be automated. Where it cannot, where there's more value needed to be done, then you have a manual intervention. But in terms of the tools and everything, could you talk about some of the metrics we can use to measure our performance, like in the sense percentage automation or percentage manual or any other metrics that you could use to say, oh, is the health of your harvesting operations good, not so good, or bad?
I can give you a couple that, not in the publishing space, but we've got hard data on. For the legal community, for categorizing information and getting it reviewed, the term is technology-assisted review or predictive coding. The manual method, and we just put a case study up for another law firm, they found that they were going to fundamentally spend $2.8 million on the processing of information for this large case. We cut that in half, and they had to redo. They put up a manual system and then a technology-assisted review system from one of our partners, and that number cut in half. We, on average, have seen, and that's one case study where they never had tried it before. Our other partners have seen a 10x in performance improvement on the review process because the system is pulling out the information that's not important. For another market where we were doing something in the publishing space, the time, it was last year or a little while ago, Hurricane Sandy turned into Superstorm. The issue for them is to add a new category for their website and use the traditional rules and keyword model with their taxonomy team would mean that it'd be about 2 weeks by the time they got everything done in a rush and got that working on their data on their site. With an example-based approach, they were literally told our system, here's the new category, here are 10 examples, actually 15. They were up and running in less than 20 minutes. So for someone to say, if classification of the information in real time through an example-based approach is something that you're looking at, we can cut the performance dramatically. We have some use cases there. That means you're changing your model, though, and adding an extra kind of piece of software in the workflow. But if that revenue is important to you to make sure that your customers can navigate to it, there are some alternatives.
Yeah, Russell mentioned before, I mean, obviously lots of the benefits of what we do for a living are cost savings, whether it's people or processes or machines or whatever it happens to be, or just scale. But a lot of value, which is a little harder to calculate, is extending the reach of the data that you're able to collect and present to your end users. So, you know, we've had customers that never imagined that they could go out after 1 million websites a day and bring back information, put it in a nice format and get it populated, whether it's checked or not a second time. Most of it's not, but where they had before just 200,000 websites. So that sort of extra reach makes them more valuable. Did they charge more for it? I don't know, but it certainly makes them more competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think Keith's right there, and that it's really hard to judge the metrics. You know, what are you saying? Is it about your budget? What percentage of your budget was spent with the partner that delivered this chunk of your data, or is it the amount of data that is delivered as a percentage of everything that you offer that came from your partner? Actually, you're the guy from Onvia, right? Yeah, you're probably the best guy to answer this question, because I bet you have some customers that have better than 50% of their products are actually driven by your particular tool, which I would say, again, it kind of goes to the search thing too, because I'm probably miscategorizing you, but you're kind of a search tool or discovery tool, whatever. And so you could almost kind of set you guys towards a given area, and you could produce a product that someone could search against, and you could charge a subscription for it. So I don't know, do you have any percentages of any customers? I mean, what does it range?
We definitely have those figures. We constantly track our performance, but just wanted to go if we have the right metrics in place, and we constantly focus on improvement. We want to improve every day. So just wanted to see if there's any metrics that we are missing that we are not tracking.
Okay, so your metrics are as good as our metrics. Excellent.
Another question? Kind of hard to see out there. Well, let me squeeze in one more and we'll wrap it up. I'm just curious because your tools, your technology really enable almost anyone to become a publisher. I mean, do you have end users coming to you to develop databases, and would you say they're coming to you for the right reasons, or they just think they have no idea what they're getting into, or they think they're going to shave a few dollars off the price? I'm just kind of curious if you encounter end users and why they're coming to you.
Yeah, we get lots of companies and people that come to us to develop databases. Some of them are used for very specific purposes like sales intelligence. So I'm going to use an example that's different from the reality because this person sort of likes what we've done for them. But if you were selling into doctors and you were able to be the first one that knew that a physician had joined a hospital and might get their first budget on the day that it happened, that's a competitive advantage over somebody who gets it two months later when they get their AMA update file. So building some technology to monitor those sorts of things, which is brand new and it didn't exist anyplace else for this particular situation, was extraordinarily valuable and strategic for that company. It was new to what they were doing.
Okay, so there was no commercial replacement for it?
No.
We get folks who come to us for, one-off data harvesting type projects, and some of which are highly suspect, and we turn those away. And then occasionally we get folks who want to clean up their CRM databases. So I don't know if that counts, but kind of end users, people who just want to add value, clean up their databases. So those are kind of oddballs for us.
Would you characterize them, I guess, as legitimate, meaning that there probably wasn't a commercial solution to what they were looking to do?
I mean, they're using the list to market their products, but it's not a product per se. The straight up harvesting stuff, yeah, we occasionally get people who want to create something, harvest everything, but usually those are really problematic because if it's that simple, there's something fishy about it probably.
Interesting.
We've had some people who we've known in the industry who may have been our clients who've either lost their jobs or have seen opportunities where their employer is not developing a business product. The scale is too small to work within a larger corporate environment, and they have come to us, and with permission of their employer, or if they've been laid off or cut, we've helped develop products for them, and that's again been a very successful model for us. We don't know what the market requires. We know how to build and gather data, which is what we've been doing for almost 3 decades, and we get that done as efficiently and as best possible to meet the needs of the end user. So we've got this, and we are always open and looking for those opportunities because it's back to John's question of velocity. It's speed to market. Everything is in nanoseconds, and long turnaround times and publishing cycles just don't work. We need to get that out yesterday. So we have nimble. In fact, one of our customers has a nimble-footed name as part of their business name, and it's getting the data to the end user quickly, timely, in as fresh a manner as possible. So we've got some smaller entrepreneurs who've come to us. The numbers aren't big, but we're very flexible to do that. So.
Interesting.
And we have end users coming to us all the time. We just tell them go away. But I'll give and point them to a partner. But I'll give one example. It was a large automobile manufacturer who gets data from a lot of people, and their own internal data. And one of the things that they had a problem with is it's data. It's not unstructured content, but there's a large field of unstructured content. And what they were missing was they had a whole series of reports where they were looking at things. We ran it through our system, and they never knew that their right front brake on a particular model car was actually a problem because everyone with all those notes about that brake pulling or feeling the car pull to the left was in either the shop notes or the customer notes. And they were in for an oil change, a service call, or some other issue, but not that. And so that ability to find in the structured data this other kind of trend is something that some of the end customers are looking for from people that are aggregating information and giving it to them in a structured format, but there's part of that structured format that's unstructured, and they don't have a good way to mine it. We've pushed them to integrators that can build a solution for them, but that's another part where I think there's a huge opportunity for the publishing industry and information service providers to sit there and say, okay, we've delivered it as structured, we've marked it up, but there's still a part of it that's unstructured. And if it's in the human voice, back to the social part, are we missing something or missing associations that will give us the trend data that customer's looking for?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, I think that does it on time, so I'd like to thank you all. I thought it was a great conversation, very helpful. And
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.